In the heart of West Africa, in a land called Burkina Faso, a child was born in 1988. His name was Ibrahim Traoré. He did not come from riches or power, but from a modest family that carried values of discipline, honor, and courage. From his early days, he was different, quiet, determined, observant. While other children dreamed of ordinary futures, Ibrahim dreamed of something greater, to serve, to protect, and to fight for justice. As he grew, his mind was sharp and his heart was restless. He studied geology at the University of Ouagadougou, but deep inside, he knew that books alone were not enough to answer the call inside him. His destiny was not to read about the earth, but to defend the people who lived upon it. The soldier within him was waiting to rise. In 2009, Ibrahim Traoré put on the uniform of the Burkina Faso army. It was more than just fabric. It was a symbol, an oath, a promise that he would give his life if necessary for his land. The training was harsh, the demands heavy, but Ibrahim carried them with pride. He trained in Morocco, he trained in Cameroon, and he returned stronger, not only in body but in spirit. Then came the mission that changed him forever. He was sent to Mali under the United Nations peacekeeping forces. There, he witnessed war in its rawest form. He saw villages burned, he saw families destroyed, he saw fear in the eyes of children, and he swore, deep within his heart, that his country would not fall into the same abyss. Burkina Faso would not be a land of despair, not while he was alive. Years passed, Ibrahim rose through the ranks. Among soldiers, he was not just an officer. He was a brother, a leader, someone who listened when others ignored. He fought beside his men, shared their food, carried their burdens. Respect followed him naturally, not because he demanded it, but because he earned it. But his nation was bleeding. Terrorist attacks spread across Burkina Faso. Corruption hollowed the government. The people were losing hope. Leaders failed, one after another, unable to defend their own citizens. By 2022, the crisis had reached its breaking point. On September 30th, 2022, history was written. At only 34 years old, Ibrahim Traoré made a decision that would change everything. With his soldiers behind him, he led a coup that shook the nation. The old government fell. Power shifted. The young officer stood before his people not as just a soldier, but as the leader of Burkina Faso. Crowds filled the streets. Flags waved in the air. The name of Ibrahim Traoré echoed from one corner of the land to another. For the first time in years, the people felt hope. But Traoré was not seeking power for himself. He made it clear. This was not for personal gain. This was for survival, for dignity, for freedom. He promised to fight terrorism with full force, to crush corruption, and to give the people back their pride. Unlike leaders who hide behind luxury, Traoré walked among his people. He stood shoulder to shoulder with farmers, with soldiers, with the poor, and the forgotten. His words were simple, but his message was powerful. Africa must rise. Africa must stand. We will no longer be slaves to foreign powers. We will build our own destiny. Those words spread like fire across social media, across borders. His speeches became the heartbeat of a new generation. Young Africans from Ghana, from Niger, from Mali, they repeated his name. They called him the new Sankara, the echo of the revolutionary hero who once inspired the continent. The West grew uneasy. They saw in Traoré a threat to their influence. But for the people of Africa, he was not a threat. He was a symbol of courage. Analysts on global news channels admitted, a new Africa is emerging, and at the center of it is Ibrahim Traoré. The story of Ibrahim is not just about politics. It is about vision. It is about a young man, barely in his 30s, who dared to do what older leaders would not. It is about courage in the face of overwhelming odds. It is about hope born in the middle of chaos. He reminds us that leadership is not about age. It is about spirit. It is about willpower. It is about the fire to protect your people no matter the cost. Today, Ibrahim Traoré stands as the youngest leader in the world. But his age is not his weakness, it is his strength. He represents the youth of Africa, the strength of a new generation that refuses to bow. His journey teaches us a lesson, that even a single soldier, if filled with vision and courage, can move mountains. That hope is never lost, even in the darkest of nights, and that Africa is rising, step by step, through leaders who are not afraid to fight. And so, the story of Ibrahim Traoré is far from over. It is only beginning. The eyes of the world are watching. The hearts of millions are beating with him. Burkina Faso has found its voice. Africa has found its symbol, and the story of Ibrahim Traoré will echo for generations to come. Ibrahim Traoré's rise is not just the tale of a man, it is the story of an entire generation. a generation that refused to remain silent while their land was divided, their resources stolen, and their people kept in poverty. When Traoré took power in 2022, many asked, can a man so young lead a nation in crisis? But the answer was found not in his words alone, but in his actions. From the very first day, he refused to sit in golden chairs or hide behind walls of luxury. Instead, he stood among soldiers, ate their food, slept in their camps, and walked the dusty streets of his people. In him, the people saw not a politician, but one of their own. In interviews and speeches, his voice carried fire. He declared boldly, Africa will not kneel. Burkina Faso will not kneel. Our future will not be written by outsiders, but by our own hands. For decades, Burkina Faso had been exploited. Its gold, its land, its resources, all drained while the people remained poor. But Traoré's leadership gave birth to a new question. Why must Africa remain in chains when its soil carries so much wealth? His words were not just speeches, they were calls to action. Across villages and cities, people began to believe again. Farmers said, we will feed our nation. Soldiers said, we will defend our nation. And the youth, who once thought of leaving for Europe or America, said, we will stay and build our nation. Traoré also carried the legacy of another man, Thomas Sankara, the great revolutionary who once ruled Burkina Faso and inspired all of Africa. Sankara had said, we must dare to invent the future, and now, decades later, many began to believe that Ibrahim Traoré was the continuation of that dream. Of course, his rise was not without enemies. Western nations watched with suspicion. Analysts warned that his defiance would bring conflict. They said he was too young, too bold, too rebellious. But to the people of Burkina Faso, those very words were proof of his strength, for in his youth, they saw hope. In his boldness, they saw courage. In his rebellion, they saw freedom. And then came his message to Africa itself. He spoke not only to his own people, but to the entire continent. He reminded Africans that they are not weak, that they are not helpless. He told them that Africa has enough to feed the world, enough gold to shine brighter than any empire, enough power to stand on its own. The only thing missing was unity and the courage to break free from old chains. This message crossed borders. In Mali, Niger, Guinea, and beyond, young men and women listened. They whispered his name. They shared his videos. They carried his words like fire in their hearts. For the first time in decades, Africa had a new hero. Not one chosen by the West, not one decorated by foreign medals, but one chosen by the people themselves. Traoré became a symbol of what Africa could become. Strong, independent, fearless. And his story became a mirror for every young African who had been told they were too small, too powerless, too unworthy. Because Ibrahim Traoré's life says the opposite, that age is not a barrier, that courage is greater than fear, and that leadership is not about position, but about sacrifice. As the months passed, Burkina Faso began to change. People stood taller, the youth walked with more pride, and across the world whispers grew louder. Something new is happening in Africa. Something unstoppable. The story of Ibrahim Traoré is not yet finished. It is still being written every single day, in the villages he protects, in the soldiers he inspires, in the speeches he gives, and in the hopes of millions who believe in him. And one day, when history is written, his name will not be remembered only as a soldier or a president, but as a symbol of rebirth. The rebirth of a nation, the rebirth of a continent, because Ibrahim Traoré is not just a man, he is a reminder that the chains of the past can be broken, that the future belongs to the brave, and that Africa's story has only just begun.